Good morning. How are you? Well, today would be a beautiful day to get on a motorcycle and ride around, but I sold mine before the pandemic for a whole variety of reasons. Dirt roads, it was slipping and sliding, drivers were being less careful with people on motorcycles, so I just thought that was a good thing to do, and it turned out fine because I wouldn't have driven during the pandemic because of the roads near where I live. So today would be a good day, and those of you who own a bike, I hope you get out where you are and have a good time. The issue before the House, literally, continues to be the debt limit. Now, as far as I understand, there's been a decision, they call it a tentative agreement. I don't know what that means. We agree to agree, but we don't have any terms yet. Anyhow, this is the kind of bullshit political talk that you get on the Hill. It's an answer and it's not an answer, so they can't get tied down until they've arm wrestled with their caucuses, that is the Republican and the Democratic caucus. And by the time you hear this, that will have happened. They will have conferred. But I have, from what we know about the contents, the term sheet, if you will, of these discussions, they're going to be upset people in both the Democratic and the Republican caucus. Now, I think as a starting point, we should establish what are the standards by which we measure what we're getting. First of all, the president said, and many agreed, myself included, as a citizen, not as an official having anything to do with this, that one thing, that is the debt limit, has nothing to do with another thing, which is our budget. Our budget is an outline of how we're going to spend government funds. The debt limit is past due obligations that we must need pay or be in default and fail as a government with all the terrible repercussions that would mean. Now, we have had Republican and Democratic presidents in the past who drew the line and said, that's it. We increased the debt limit. It's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And Trump was in that category, and Obama was in that category. You may remember the crazy moments with Gingrich. So it's not unprecedented to actually, follow the dictates of precedent and sensibility and what, indeed, a debt limit is about. But somewhere on the way to Disneyland, Biden decided that these two were entangled one with the other, and that he would make concessions on spending in order to get an agreement on increasing the debt limit to a date past the election. Okay, so here's a motive that shouldn't be involved in this discussion. That is, the debt limit being tied to the presidential campaign rather than to the necessities of our financial stability. Okay, so put that aside, because there are more fish to fry that are worse, in my opinion, from the early disclosures of what this is about. And I think two things are going to happen. By the time you hear this whole thing may have blown up, because the demands in each caucus, Republican and Democrat, may contradict directly what the, quote, tentative agreement is. So let's consider a couple of the things. The Dems have agreed to cut federal spending. Cut federal spending. Cut programs voted on in Congress and not fulfill them. Disappoint and contradict the expectations of we the people for what Congress had done that many anticipate and rely upon occurring. So, now, when you do something like this, it's good to do it to people that can't fight back, don't have lobbyists in the game. So, for example, the tentative conclusion is that people have to work for certain federal aid, namely food stamps, ignoring that in the category of poverty, a person who needs these supplements and perhaps exclusively is fed based on these supplements probably couldn't get the job that would allow him or her and or family to get the food they need to subsist, aside from questions of medical needs and disabilities and the like. The Democrats, at a time of high competition in the world, and the designated path for worldly financial success in the United States, is our scientific research. We're going to cut that back. Because of the pandemic and other things, the government gave rental aid. Now we're going to cut that back too. And nutritional assistance, as I've said. So, what else did we agree to? We agreed to reduce federal expansion. We're not going to spend more money on the programs for the people, if you will, the ones we the people depend upon, that we require. So, now this is interesting because they're going to reduce the funds spent on securing obedience by the very wealthy with our tax laws. So we're going to cut back on the number of people that are available to actually run the audits and enforce our laws. Now, I talked about reductions, but what did the Republicans get? Well, the Democrats are reducing spending while the Republicans want to increase spending, and they want to increase defense spending. So their policy is trade guns for butter, meaning we don't take care of our people. We prepare for war. We spend more on federal defense spending. The upside down notion is pretty disturbing. And there is no agreement about closing loopholes that would mean more income, which would mean the ability to spend more or to decrease the debt more. We're not going to have any student debt relief because it's not mentioned in the agreement, the tentative agreement. Now, if I got my facts straight, in the afternoon of this Sunday, the caucuses are meeting to talk about terms. Now, there will be leaks, particularly by those who disagree with the tentative agreement. The Republicans may be much more forthright because they've had an uneasy relationship with their speaker that they can remove with a single vote and choose someone else. Could happen, maybe not, but could. We have the Freedom Forum already online attacking elements of the agreement. The Democrats, it appears, are under discipline to keep their powder dry until the minority leader has a chance to talk to them about the politics of this. In other words, it's a disaster. Now, online, when I saw the status yesterday evening, on Twitter I made remarks about how this was a bad deal. I mean, it defied the original proposal that there is no connection between the debt limit and our budget. Okay, we violated that proposition in the proposed tentative agreement. And we are going forward with this with significant elements of each party dissenting. So how can one get a vote out of this? Well, the way one could get a vote is depending upon how large a number from the Republican caucus McCarthy can get and how many Democrats are comfortable with this compromise, they could pass it. Will they? Hard to say. Given how erratic, almost crazy, unsettling, and chaotic is the handbook for the Republican leadership, I think it would be really a big surprise if this didn't have an atomic bomb reaction. In other words, the Republican caucus blows up. The Democratic caucus, who feels strongly about these policy positions, believes them down to the bone. I can't imagine they'll remain silent as much as they respect and admire their new leader. And there have been members of the caucus who said, you got to tell the White House to stop going where they are. He reassured them, and the White House, it seems to me, went where at least 77 members thought was wrong. So that's our problem. So going forward, there may be a vote as early as Tuesday, and there may not be. Also, consider the fact that one of the most important financial decisions of this administration and of the Congress is on the table, and these people are in recess. They're not there. They're not there to work it through. They're not there to be briefed. They're not organized for the vote. They haven't submitted language for it. So this is going to be cooking, in a 1,000-page bill that is presented to the House, perhaps only 2 copies or 3 copies for the whole House, that no one has read completely. And there lays the language that'll bite you in the hindquarters down the road. So, if it's not clear, I am opposed to this tentative agreement. And given where it is now, I don't see how it gets better. Why didn't the president consider, as messy as it is, invoking the Constitution and saying, I'm preserving the debt limit as is necessary for us to meet our obligations under Article 14, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution. Thank you very much. See you in court if you dare. And continue the government. That's what he should do. Messy, but true and accurate and constitutional, and follows the law and common sense, and protects us from a world that thinks we get buffeted back and forth by all sorts of issues that don't disturb any other government on earth. So that's it. I'm having a nice walk earlier in the day. I have demands from my case. I'm going to work on that. And a neighbor has a graduation I probably attend with Holly, with masks. I don't know how many people will be there. So, nice talking to you from my cathedral of trees. We can hope and wish that the Congress figures out how to do its job right, because they don't know right now. All the best. Bye-bye.